Hello and welcome to OurTime. Gabe Kelly is an inspiring leader of change, speaker and innovator working with boards, executive teams and community. She delivers powerful keynotes on subjects such as a psychological vaccination for the nation, rebuilding human capital in cities and towns in the COVID era, well-being for people and planet, resilient thinking in democracy and well-being, and productivity. And she's here! Gabe.
Tired after that list.
It is. It's quite a bit, isn't it? So you've been a tad busy since we worked together a very long time ago on Here's Humphrey.
A few things have happened. I've been a bit busy.
Well, we're going to show some clips of you when we were both children later. But let's talk about your life to start with, because first of all, what did you want to be as a child?
I wanted to be a writer, and then a ballet dancer, and then an actor, singer. And I thought by the time I finished school, I did science at school because I wanted to hedge my bets, and I also liked science, physics, maths, and stuff, and didn't really know what was going to happen. But I then did an arts degree, thinking that an arts degree would develop my thinking, enlarge my love of English. But I thought that I'd be an actress.
Right, after all of that, you thought you'd be an actress. And what's interesting about this, and we should explain, you're undergoing some treatment at the moment, which gives you some really nasty things happening.
Yeah.
Maybe you should just explain what that is, if that's okay.
Yeah, I've got cancer. I'm being treated for cancer. It's a bit rough. I'm doing well, but the treatment is challenging at times, and I need to have drinks of water pretty regularly.
Well, that's all right. Yeah. You're fine.
I'm glad to be here.
Drink away.
Drink away.
Well, isn't that the truth, though? We are all glad to be here because we're not 50 years old anymore.
Correct, Amundo.
And being alive is better than the alternative.
It's gorgeous.
It is.
It's gorgeous.
And I think often we forget to embrace the joy of just living.
Well, there's a quote I heard the other day from a Buddhist writer, which is, you have two lives, and your second life begins the day that you realise that you only have one life.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
I mean, not many great gifts from cancer, but the one gift from cancer is that it draws you up straight and makes you realise that you will die, and you may die soon, and that you should enjoy life. And I'm
enjoy
really
every
doing
day.
That. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I'm good at it.
Getting back to when life wasn't a worry, though.
Yeah.
So you actually started in TV quite early, didn't you? Because of your ambition initially.
Well, I didn't know that I had the ambition then, but yes, I was an announcer.
Well, did any of us?
Well, actually no. I was remembering after we spoke, it was Joanne Priest, that incredible woman who taught the music, choir, dance, art classes to children in Adelaide. I was involved in the choir there at the age of 8 and 9 with my sister, and her choir had a spot on Channel 9. And so every month we would sing on Channel 9 in the Southern Stars program.
Yep.
And that was my first television experience. And so then one night my mother saw an ad in the paper for junior announcers. She pushed it across the table at me and she said, "Oh, you might be interested in this." She didn't do anything else after that. I went to the audition, I got picked as a junior announcer. I was a junior announcer at age 10 every Wednesday for 2 years.
Well, you've got this lovely rich voice, which would have been perfect, I imagine.
I guess. It was fun anyway. And so it introduced me to TV.
And we don't have them anymore. I should just explain, that program was fascinating because in those days in early TV, there wasn't enough program coming or being made in Australia, certainly, but there also wasn't enough program coming from America. So what a lot of the stations did was get close by the station dance schools or community people to put shows together to fill up a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon when sport wasn't on. And in those days, OBs were very difficult, outside broadcasts were very difficult.
Really.
Yeah.
And Joanne Priest had an incredible impact on the cultural life of Adelaide. She was incredible.
And she was right next door to the studios, so that really helped. Anyway, those times have gone, sadly.
Anyway, I loved it. I loved being on TV at 10 and I learned about TV, so I wasn't frightened of it. And then years went by, I finished university, many things happened, but I did a lot of singing at university. I did a lot of singing all the way through that time, and I thought I was going to be a performer of one kind or another. And then I'd had my first baby at 24, and auditions came on. I was a high school teacher for a couple of years, algebra, French, produced the school play, won the Therry Award with the boyfriend. So I kept the performing going all through school, all through university, all through teaching. Then I saw an ad for the Here's Humphrey a program, and I applied for that, and I got onto
Right.
it.
Well, I've found some clips, and we'll show that later because they're very funny. They're very funny only because they were a thing of their time, the clothing was. But let's talk about what you've been doing for the last, 40 years or something?
Yeah, well, I'm a master of nothing, but I'm a deep generalist. I did an arts degree, which was a beautiful training for me. It was about thinking, poetry, English language, French, politics, history, mathematics. It was such beautiful training for me, and my life's grown out of that training.
Right.
And I'm a deep generalist. So I spent a lot of my life being a documentary filmmaker after I was a television artist, a presenter and then writer and then producer-ish. So I was a long time in the film industry, then a long time in the internet industry, then a long time a businesswoman, and then recently a long time as a foundation innovator of a company that builds wellbeing.
Right, and was all this with the it's the acronyms. SAMRI, yes, which stands for the South Australian
Health and Medical Research Institute.
Right.
So in recent years...
Why didn't they just say that in the first place?
In recent years, in the last 12 years or so, I took the idea to SAMRI that we should have a wellbeing and resilience centre to help build the wellbeing and mental health of everybody.
Right.
Not only to help people with mental illness become stronger, better, more resilient, but also for the whole population, like dental hygiene.
Right.
Like dental hygiene.
And that's so important.
People need to build their psychological health like a muscle. And there's plenty of evidence to prove that you can build your psychological health by knowing some more information, by applying some techniques to yourself and your family or your boyfriend and girlfriend, and you can become stronger because, as COVID has proven, as life proves, as the cancers proved, anything can happen. And in human life, things do happen. And you need to be resilient, whether you are 7, 12, 20, 40 or 60. You need to be resilient.
I was all those ages once.
I know,
Yes.
I know. I remember them well.
Look, but you've spent a lot of time... Now, is it called the Greater Building in the...
No, I never call it that. Why would you call one of the most beautiful buildings in Adelaide a cheese grater?
A cheese grater,
Why would you do that?
No, you called it a cheese grater. I just said grater.
No, that is a really bad habit that we have in South Australia that we need to stop.
Well, I don't know. See, in the UK, all of those buildings in the UK, there's the pineapple and there's the pointy one, the chard. And
yeah, but cheese grater... It's ugly.
I think...
I love the building, and it's
fascinating
It
building,
is that building that...
Because it looks like it floats.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
It's a beautiful building. It was
I'm saying this for the people in Victoria because right next to the Royal Adelaide Hospital, the RA, which is a new building here just on the edge of the city, there is a whole lot of new builds in Adelaide that Adelaide is just shooting up like Melbourne has. Yeah. And this is one of those buildings that really had a personality of its own, unlike any other building that we've got here in Adelaide.
It was built with all the ecological values in it, with the human-centric values, with the health values. And when it was being built and I hadn't found a place for my centre, I used to look at it, walk past it and go, that's where my centre's going to be. And it was like real visioning, you know, and it was great to be in that building.
So can you explain... You know, we talk about these wonderful words, but can you explain what you actually have worked on? Just briefly, a few of the things that you've worked on or with.
In relation to well-being or in relation to anything?
Well, anything particular, but let's talk about well-being to start with.
Well, I'm about methods. I'm about using evidence, using science, using people's experience, using your common sense to put together... This is what I'm all about. Imagine this is a table that's got other levels stacked on top of each other. I think life is like that, and that we are on this one now, and that we're building the next one. And then there'll be another generation of people who are already here to build the next one into the future. And if we want a positive future, we've got to all dig in and build it, because there's plenty of people like Putin building a really negative one, okay? So that's what my whole life is.
Isn't that frightening? Well, it's not just Putin.
It's terrifying.
You know, but why suddenly... Every so often, was it 50 years, 80 years, why do these despots suddenly appear out of nowhere?
Well, that's a big historical
and
question
start to
that's
take
worth
over?
studying
Yes.
and worth understanding. But the result of that, in my mind, is that those of us who are alert to the possibilities of a positive future need to build one. So that's why I'm a documentary filmmaker. That's why I believe in democracy. That's why I decided in my 20s to put my boots on the side of change and building a positive world.
But aren't we lucky to have a democratic country?
Oh,
And so
but
democratic.
it took hundreds of years to build it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you know, we have been very lucky because there's so many checks and balances in place.
Absolutely.
And people forget that. You see all this happening in the rest of the world. We complain about our leaders.
I know.
But we actually aren't educated well enough about what's going on underneath.
And somebody in their 30s said to me recently they really admire, no disrespect to China here, by the way. I've worked in China, I know a lot of Chinese people and a lot of great stuff in China. However, they said they really loved the Chinese system of government because it's so efficient. And I looked at them and looked them in the eye and said, yes, but what price? Freedom.
True.
And for me,
And we have amazing freedom in this country.
democratic freedom is an achievement of history, and we're very lucky to have it. But it's a very fragile new form of government that we need to build with and treasure, I think.
Oh, not only that, but with the new technology that's coming through, there's so much more that we've got to evolve mentally into.
That's right.
And you're right about the levels, because it's true. That's
so
gonna
we
happen.
come back to resilience, these building of these levels, this complex world that's getting more complex, this global world that we're all connected to, we need to have the lights on up here. And we need to have good psychological health and build our muscles just like we go to the gym to build our physical muscles. That's all there is to it. And you can build your psychological strength by paying attention to the way you think, by learning how to overcome negative thoughts, by practicing what good quality friendships and relationships look like, by stopping mixing with people who are going to take you down the tube, and a whole bunch of things that are not complicated. Just like going to the gym to build your thigh muscles isn't complicated, you just have to do it.
To me, it really is just about how to be educated, or how to educate yourself through what's available to be a better person.
That's
Speaking of that, we just have to take a short break and we'll be back in a tick. A very special guest on our time this time is the amazing Gabe Kelly. Gabe, now I found, because I've got this library of stuff that I did on TV years ago, thousands of hours of it in fact, because we did so many, and I've gone through my archives and I've found a couple of clips of you. And the sad thing is, and we've talked about this, that the commercial stations never kept, as the ABC has with Play School, they never kept really any records of anybody, and I don't know that any of this footage exists anywhere. So let's have a look at you and I when we were 20-something?
24.
24. And look, you were going skiing.
Can I help you?
You certainly can. Can you take my socks for me, please?
The interesting thing about this is we never knew what sort of costumes we were going to get or what we would generally be asked to do until we started filming on the day that we filmed.
How are you?
No, that wasn't true. I used to read the scripts and study them.
No. We never knew what clothing we'd end up, whether it
that's
would
true.
fit us or not. It would just come in
that's true.
and we'd be told that's what we had to
That's
do.
true.
Oh no, Snowy.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, you're right. I'm going
So you're explaining that you're going off to a holiday and
to go skiing.
it's all going to be fabulous,
Please,
and what all
let me
this
show you
was.
what I've got to do. Have you ever been
And this was one of the
I'll see
boys here when we
anybody
were putting
who's
this
been
together
going
was
skiing
just
and dressed
saying,
like me.
you know, what an amazing set that was.
Humphrey.
This is another bit of another
Where
show
did you fix all of these?
where
Just done it in the pub. Oh, you've done
we
it
had all
in
these
the job.
fabulous
We could do
props,
a lot of things
painted
with these, but
boxes
we
and
really
stuff.
need-
We didn't exactly have a big budget for this show.
No, we didn't.
If we're going to cut things
No,
up,
we didn't.
stick on
I reckon that's an op shop dress from the 1940s.
Oh, all right. Thanks,
Okay. I love your shoes, ballet slipper shoes. I actually remember you wearing those shoes. You were saying that in those days we're all poor, really. Because, again, unlike today, there were no residuals for any of these programs. So they were shown around Australia numerous times.
You look beautiful. Look at
Oh,
you.
well, look at me now.
Look at you. Look at you. You
But-
still look beautiful.
But it's just this amazing, the amount of money spent on these old boxes. We're making a train, which you'll hear.
Doesn't really look like a train to me, though.
But they were just wonderful times because, if you recall, we had a script. There was no dialogue in the script. You're about to teach me to dance. And
Oh, look at this.
what's funny about it? Yes, well, there you go. Look what happens with
We
age.
certainly are. We've dressed up and we've pretended
What's
to be
funny
people
about
from
this
the
is,
olden
in a
days
way,
going
we
to a ball.
had to make up our own dialogue
Yes,
for everything.
We did.
And so we would record 3 hours of television one day and 2 hours the next day.
We have to start off with
And
that.
this would go on
All
for
weekend.
40 weeks a year, I think
Yes.
it was.
Yes.
So in the early days, you weren't there when I started in black and white. Well, there you go again. You're coming back again. In black and white.
You started in black and white TV?
Yeah, I started in black and white. And of course, we would have the weirdest looking coloured clothes on because it didn't matter. You know. What are your memories of these times?
Oh, very rich memories, especially since we've reconnected recently. I loved it because it was performance. Also, I had a child, Jordan, and I loved being a young mother. And I knew exactly what who my audience was. My audience was one child down the camera. And what's worse, what could be better than singing and dancing and performing and telling stories to a little child.
And playing
and
like a child again. That's what it was for me.
I just adored it. And I rehearsed with my child and then children, Rowan, in the kitchen. So we all learnt the songs together. I sang them and practiced them with my children and learnt the script. And so I had endless stories to tell, endless children. And I just loved it. I loved it. And it was also very efficient work for the reasons that you were talking about to me earlier, which is that it was very low budget television. So it all had to be produced quickly over a weekend. Really, it was ferocious, the pressure to not stop.
But it developed a way of thinking that
Yeah.
probably isn't around today. Although people that are doing like the soapies and things where you're constantly learning a script, doing it, but you had to learn to forget it because you couldn't keep those things in your mind. You had to forget it, or you couldn't take in the next information.
And people are doing their own video podcasts, getting a little bit of that too, because they're doing rapid, real-time, performative stuff now.
But you can read that. We couldn't.
That's
we didn't
true.
have
No,
scripts.
no, they just
Although
had
we
to
did-
remember the cardboard bits of
the
paper.
idiot sheets.
Yeah,
yes.
the idiot sheets.
The beauty of, for me, the beauty of the whole exercise for me was, I suppose, just being a child again. I had a lonely childhood in a way, and this also almost made up for the lonely childhood.
Really.
But we also went through a time that was a dramatic change in what was appropriate for children. And when we talk about the budget, one of the reasons there were no budgets because advertising was taken out of that whole area. So for commercial stations, they had no actual money coming in apart from their own resources. And that's why the budgets got smaller and smaller as time went on. And why they never kept anything because the videotapes that was recorded on 2-inch tapes were so expensive that once they'd gone round and played in every station in Australia, then we would re-record over them until they were fragmented to the point they couldn't.
Yeah, it was very hard-pressed economical TV. But you know the best thing about it, apart from the playing and the performing with someone else and the thinking of the children, which I really made my heart burst. I loved it. Was the fact that even though the Humphrey show itself, with an unusual-looking bear, you know, an unusual creature in the middle of it who couldn't speak for reasons that were never described. It was such a different structure.
A bear.
That's right.
That's right.
That's true. That's true. Oh,
And
true.
he didn't wear pants.
Okay, that's right.
bears don't.
Different to Play School, which had a big budget and was done beautifully with very high quality educational, done by the top actors of the country. It was very good in so many ways.
We were the top actors in the country.
No, but you know what we could do? We wrote scripts with emotional content in them.
Yes.
And we acted them out, and Humphrey could express emotions. And one of my great memories was being in a room with a child, not my child, watching Humphrey that I had written the script of and I was performing in, and this child saw me comfort Humphrey because something had hurt his feelings, and I was comforting him and giving him a kiss and a cuddle, and that child, who was a bit of a troubled child, got up from the television set, came back to me and gave me a hug. And I thought, that's why I do this work.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Exactly.
And Humphrey had the ability to allow emotional communication, and I loved that. And I loved thinking about how to write for it, and then I loved performing that.
Yes, well, I also wrote, but that was purely for economic reasons, because I remember back in the early days, and this is true, I was paid $80 a week to make the 5 hours of national television, but if I wrote a script, I got 100. So guess what? Every week.
Yeah, well, I was a new young mum then writing scripts, and I had to start writing at night, at 9 o'clock at night after the baby was asleep.
But you had the experience of what the children were doing, and I suppose relating to during the day.
Absolutely, which I loved. I really loved it. And I loved putting in, we had a wonderful musical director called Phil Caneen, who was an incredible musician and incredible producers, and worked for Ian Fairweather as the boss.
Well, Ian was definitely the influence on me. He was fantastic to work with. You've got to have someone who's been there before you, who knows what to teach you.
But his ethics and values about children,
yes,
unbelievable.
yes, yeah.
And Penny Ann Smith, as she was then, unbelievable standard of attention to the child audience.
Well, and she had children.
Yeah.
You know, I had no children at all, so I just did what I was told. That was easy for me.
We bossed you around a bit.
Well, I didn't mind that. What I did mind, though, to be frank, was we were going through a period of trying to change, in a way, the understanding of what was appropriate for men and women, or boys and girls, to do.
Absolutely.
And I sometimes felt it went a little too far the other way, but I had no problem with that. I lived alone. I did my own washing, cooking, ironing. I fixed the car. I fixed the fence.
Well, I would have been responsible for those scripts.
Oh, no, it wasn't just you. It wasn't just you.
Oh, no, the producers were, absolutely.
But it was a time of trying to change the way people thought about things.
And to allow young children to be free to be who they were.
Sure.
Without too many rules about what a girl does and what a boy does.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we did that.
And they'll work that out for themselves anay, whatever that was, they would. But they were certainly shown on the program you could be anything. And I had no problem with whether it was the dressing up or making the food or whatever.
No.
And the girls like you went went skiing.
Yeah.
Oh, I never went skiing. Did you actually get to go skiing?
No, are you kidding me on that budget? Are you kidding me?
No, they did go skiing once. They actually did shoot quite a bit in the snow. I never got invited either. But you know, when we reminisce about these things, we know that there are a whole bunch of people who are now much older, probably in their 50s, who grew up with us. And it's lovely when people actually come up to you and say, oh, I remember you when, and I used to watch that all the time. I did it
I've
for
got,
such a long time.
tell this lovely story. I was on a plane, a Qantas plane, going somewhere, and this young, wildly attractive young woman came up to me way too close for normal communication. She came right up to my face and she said, you taught me English.
Ah, yes, we heard those stories
beautiful.
Quite often, actually.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
I was so moved by that.
Amazing, isn't it? Sit right there for a tick. We've got to take another break and we'll be back soon. And welcome back. Our guest is Gabe Kelly. Gabe, of all the things you've done in your life, were the documentaries one of your favourites?
There were many things that were my favourites, but yes, I loved becoming a documentary film producer and director. I loved making films about climate change in 1989 and 1992 with Robert Redford and world leaders in climate science. I've paid attention to climate change since the beginning. I believe that documentary filmmakers, producers now, digital media people are really important in terms of democracy.
Oh, and education.
In terms of knowledge, in terms of integrating what's happening. So I was honoured to become a documentary film director. I played my part. I started the documentary conference, which still exists. And I really believe that people in life who choose to use media, digital media, Instagram, I don't care which one, to enhance the positive evolution of the world, I think that's a job for life.
It's the positive we need to hear about, though.
It's the positive, the intelligent also.
Yes, but it's difficult when you've got to ferret your way through the rubbish and the truth.
But that's the challenge of the present.
Well, that is, isn't it? That we've never had to experience before.
And we're up for it. Look, we're evolving. It's the next table being built.
Okay, could they be layers of cake? I still
Of course
like
they could.
cake.
No problem. You can tap dance on top of them.
It's been lovely talking with you. What do you think's your finest achievement apart from your children?
Thank you. Love, generally.
of the human race?
Well, yes. Well, that's a bit weak, isn't it?
I don't know.
No,
Is there anything else? You know, at the end of the day, if humans aren't communicating and sharing experiences, what else is there?
no, exactly right.
We're not having an affair with the moon.
That's right. And at the end of the day, I have tried to behave according to my values, and I've tried to develop my understanding of my values and grow myself up as a human. So I think I'm a mature woman. I'm 69. I'm quite happy to be 69. I'm an elder. I've learned a lot. I continue learning. I'm proud of that.
Well, I hope your learning continues for many, many years, and I hope we were just talking about maybe in 3 years' time they'll find the cure for what's wrong with you.
I'm
And
planning to be here.
I'll talk to you again.
Good.
I'll talk to you again. It's time for us to say goodbye. Thanks very much, Gabe. And thank you for being part of Our Time. This time, till next time on Our Time, keep yourself nice till then. Bye.